Hi everyone, I'm Tina.
Hi Tina.
I just want to talk a little bit about, where I've been in my life and some of the changes that happened through FasterEFT and where I'm planning on going in my life. So when I was young, my dad used to have panic attacks and I learnt them really, really well. And part of the reason I think is because we didn't really express love in my family. So that was my way of loving my dad, is becoming like him. And I didn't know what the problem was because we never called them panic attacks when my dad had them. We called them dad was having one of his turns. So I never even knew what it was. And I didn't know that I'd learnt it so well until I went to university and my whole world came crashing down. So I spent my entire 20s in my house. I had to drop out of university. I've got a really, really, really good imagination. So I created a really interesting problem for myself, and I had lots of rules, like if you stay really, really still, nothing bad will happen to you. So you can imagine that's not a very good rule. I spent a lot of time on my couch. I believed that I wasn't worth anything. I wasn't even meant to be here. That's what I believed. And so because I wasn't meant to be here, I wasn't meant to take up any of the resources of the planet, which included things like oxygen. So, which really helped my hyperventilation and panic attacks. So there was a lot of sitting on the couch, shallow breathing going on. I became scared of absolutely everything. I couldn't do housework because I was afraid of anything that I thought was a chemical. I thought a speck of laundry detergent on my finger, if it got near my mouth, would kill me instantly. And I believed that story for a very, very long time. So I used to wash my hands compulsively. So I had cracked, bleeding hands. It was really painful. I didn't have any good dreams for 10 whole years. I only had nightmares. And that was when I could finally get to sleep. And I would lie awake half the night until I came to a surrendering that I knew I was going to die every night. And so I might as well go to sleep while I'm waiting for it to happen. So that was the only way I was able to get myself to fall asleep. I had images in my head. One image was that death was coming for me every day. And I would see me and death sitting at a card table, just playing cards, and he was going to win. That was a really strong image. So I had images, I had rules in my head, I had beliefs. I had sounds. My life was so small, it was so contained, I couldn't go outside of the house. If I did, I would feel like I would forget how to walk. So I'd be walking along and just have a fear of just falling over and not being able to get up. I didn't want that to happen crossing the road, so I tried not to cross roads. If I did, I had to walk next to someone else. If no one else was there, I had to go follow, if there was a white line on the road, just follow that white line to get to the other side. When I went to the supermarket, I'd have to take like $50 to buy a bottle of milk because I was so dissociated that I would look at the price and I couldn't believe that was the price. So I'd go like, okay, it's $2, but I couldn't believe it. So I'd have to always pay for $50 because I was so scared of not having enough money. So I had so many things going on in my head and it ruled my whole life. And for 10 years as well, that was 10 years. I was very lucky because I was married in that time and my husband took care of everything. So everywhere that I was falling down, he would be picking up that burden. So then I discovered inner child therapy, which was a manifestation because it's just a synchronicity how that I was able to do that. I won't tell that story now, but the place where it was held was on my street. And if it had been even a street over, I would never have been able to attend those workshops. So I did that for a year. And at the end of that year, I went to England with my sister. So it was a huge recovery for me. So then in my 30s, I started building a life for myself, but it was always a very small life. So I got divorced because my marriage couldn't handle my recovery from that period, which was okay. But then I had to do something with my life. So I started building something. I studied, and I moved to Canberra, and I was working at a healing centre doing aromatherapy and beauty therapy and massage. But it was very small. My life there was very small. I lived over the road. So it took me a few years before I realised because I'd always considered myself recovered because of how dramatic the change was, but I realised I was still living a very small life. There was still lots of rules and beliefs inside of me. And that's when I discovered FasterEFT, because I was looking for something online and came across the videos, as so many of us have, and I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And the one thing that always kept me going, I think, was my sense of humour and my family's sense of humour. And I think that's the first thing I connected with FasterEFT, was that sense of humour that was coming across. Because a lot of the work I'd done besides inner child was all very serious. So that really connected with me. And I thought, another one of these American people that's never going to come to Australia. And then I was like, wait a minute, he's coming to Australia. So one of my issues at the time was that I really had no money. Very small income, and I scraped together the money to come down for the money workshop, which was like this weekend we had a few years back. And yeah, that was the beginning of a whole new phase of my life. And Robert tapped on me, and a lot of you probably have seen that video. So I went back to Canberra, and my life in Canberra just came apart. It unravelled. And I did resist it a little bit, but at the same time I knew in my heart it was meant to be. So that unravelled, and I came back to Melbourne, or I went back to Melbourne, and I did level 1 the next year, and so many things changed. Like, a lot of symptoms that I'd had that I hadn't recognised that I thought was normal. So I had a thing about that I couldn't be happy. If someone else looked unhappy, I couldn't be happy. And I tapped on that in one of the lunch breaks. I went for a walk around the block, and I was just tapping, I can be happy, regardless of what's going on. So I turned the corner to go back into the hotel, and this guy in a wheelchair came past at that moment. And I had this huge smile on my face that I tapped on there. And any other time, that smile would have just gone. I would have wiped that smile off my face immediately. And the funny thing was that the friend of his pushing the wheelchair was twice as miserable as the guy in the wheelchair. And I still remember holding that smile on my face and going, it's okay. Like, these people aren't being hurt by my happiness, and my miserableness couldn't help them, either of them. And that was a huge change for me. Another one was I hadn't been able to watch or listen to the news or even know anything about the news for 10 years because it would just upset me so much. It would bring nightmares back. I was sleepwalking and had hurt myself sleepwalking as well. So I just avoided anything like that. And then one day I realised that I could read the news on my phone. And I started reading the news regularly every day, and it felt really good because I felt reconnected to the world, that I was able to know what was going on. So that was a really big shift. Another one was I still believed that I wasn't going to be alive in the near future. So I always lived with about a month ahead. That's all I believed that I was ever going to last. Which made life a little bit difficult. So I would never buy Christmas presents early, because what's the point? Like, I'm not going to be there. I didn't understand how people could save up for things. Like, save up, like, why? You're not going to be here. That's how I felt. And one of my tapping buddies tapped on me around that. And it was like a miracle. we actually got it out to where I could believe that I would be around for 6 months into the future. How amazing is that? So I could start making forward plans. So the first time in my life, and I was in my 40s, the first time I ever felt I was going to live beyond the next month. So that was amazing. Just other little things, I stopped smoking, and that's not something I tapped on, it was a decision that I made, but I know that the tapping helped, and the tapping kept me from not going back to it, because I'd smoked and given up many, many times since I was about 20, and I've never felt a desire to smoke again, and that's very freeing. The other thing I used to do often after I smoked was I used to eat ice cubes, just crunch, 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 crunch. And I can see why, what I was trying to express. And one day I just noticed that I hadn't eaten ice cubes for about 2 weeks, and it was every day. It was like 5 times a day, which was doing a real number on my teeth, which really helped my dentist phobia. So... so that changed, and just so many stories like that, so many aspects of my life changed. And then I went through, I did level 2, level 1 again, and then I went through what, I don't know, I consider sort of an abreaction. So for the next 4 years, I actually lived on about $20 a week. I had no money coming in. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I can say that now. Because if I had manifested money at that time, it wouldn't have been right for me. I wasn't in the right space. And I kept tapping all through those years, and I kept pushing myself, trying to make money come into my life. And it never happened. But all this other stuff was happening through the tapping. So my self-esteem, which had been at the bottom, rose so high that it just changed my whole perspective on life. We kept tapping on money. So my self-worth was directly connected to my money. So if there was nothing in my bank account, I felt like I was nothing. And then if there was a bit of money in my bank account, I felt like I was a bit of something. And then if there was like what I would consider a lot at the time, then I'd feel, better about myself. But it was such an up and down roller coaster. It was not good for me. And the tapping helped me to completely break that link. And my worst fear was that I would have $0 in the bank. So I'd always have like at least $5 in the bank. And one day I had $0 in the bank, and I was like, this is like my worst nightmare, and I'm okay. Like it doesn't say anything about me as a person whatsoever. And that day was a real turning point for me that made all the difference. And I had there's other stories like that as well for what happened in those years. I guess another big one was that I was able to accept support. So I'd never ever asked for it or accepted support from people, except for my husband back in that period of time. So none of my family knew about my problems. It was never talked about. And I'd never got support. And when I went back to Melbourne, I had to move in with my parents because I had no money. And I healed so much family stuff in the last 4 years. It's a miracle. I have the most amazing relationships with my parents, my sister, my 2 brothers, even my in-laws, my nephews and my niece. I feel surrounded by love and support in that time. And it's just a real blessing, because I know if I'd manifested money when I first wanted to, I wouldn't have been concentrating at all on those relationships, and I wouldn't have accepted any support. But the whole time I was tapping on money with my tapping buddies and myself, money, 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 money. And one day I looked at what I was trying to do with my work, and I just gave it up. I just surrendered. I said, I'm not making any money anyway, and I'm pushing myself so hard, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to let it go. Because I had all these rules about, you've got to make money. So I just decided to be someone who doesn't make any money. So very soon after that, we actually sold our family house, and I had a share in that house, financial share from my divorce. And on the surface, it looked like I wouldn't get any cash out of that. It would all go into buying another house to live in. And that's not how it worked out at all. I ended up with a huge chunk of cash in my bank account for the very first time, which has now opened my life completely, and that's why I'm able to be here in Brisbane today. But it was just such a miracle, and I was ready for it. I was 100% ready. So when that money was coming in, I was spending it, but I knew exactly what I wanted to spend it on for my own well-being, my growth, and the benefit of those around me as well. And when I look back now at the money I've spent, it's like, yes, 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 yes. It was all in alignment with where I'm trying to go. So, yeah, so that didn't happen very long ago, just at the beginning of the year. So I'm still getting my head around that, I guess. I feel like a different person, but I feel like a better version of myself than I was. And so now I'm looking into the future, and having that money has helped as well to take my ability to believe that I'll be around. I haven't sort of decided on a number, but it feels like maybe 5, could be 10 years, you know, which gives me, now I have a vision of my future and how I want to spend the next few years, and part of that is travelling, so that's really exciting. So I'm really happy to have finally come to level 2. It's been a long time coming, and I've learnt so much this week, and I've met amazing people and just been reminded about how many people are out there that are supportive and loving and open. And my intention for this weekend was to take myself to the next level, and I feel like I've really cleared a lot of stuff out this week that is going to take me happily into my future. So thank you.